Did you know that Crunch Fitness actually went bankrupt in 2009, and today they are worth over $1 billion? So maybe you've driven by a Crunch Fitness, maybe you've actually worked out there and you've thought, these things are giant. How much money does it take to open one of these up? How much money do they actually make in terms of sales, and are they a good investment? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down in this video. If you're new here, my name is Tarek Johnson. I am the CEO and founder of Franchise Empire, where we have helped hundreds of people find, vet, buy, and launch proven money-making franchises. Now, this video is going to be fun because Crunch Fitness gives us some unique insight into their sales and the financial performance of their locations. So I'm really excited to share that with you and dive into it. If you're not familiar, Crunch Gym is a chain known for its no judgments philosophy, which combines a wide variety of fitness activities with an emphasis on fun and inclusivity. When I read that, I thought, that sounds awfully familiar to Planet Fitness. Did Crunch copy Planet Fitness? Because Planet Fitness obviously has the bigger name. What's interesting is that Crunch has been around since 1989. They actually started before Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness has been around since 1992. Now, in terms of how many locations that they have open, and we'll dive into some of the other numbers like sales, startup costs, all that good stuff. In 2024, they started with 367 total locations open, and they added 55 locations for a total of 422 locations. Now get this, out of those 422 locations, only 8 are company owned and a whopping 415 are franchisee owned. Now, in terms of the startup costs, so they have a couple of different models, which is common for fitness concepts. It's common for a lot of food concepts as well, like fast food. They'll have kind of different models and categories of location. So Crunch has what's called the fitness model, which is between $928,000 to $3.7 million to get up and open. They have the Crunch Select model, which is $804,000 to $5.198 million to get open. And then they have the Crunch Signature model, which is between $1.3 million to $6.7 million to get up and open. Ironically enough, there's a Crunch opening right across the street from me. Every time you go in that giant shopping center across the street too, they have their staff walking around like canvassers, like they're trying to get you to vote or something, but they're trying to get you to sign up for the gym, which is pretty interesting. And I keep getting hit with these Facebook ads from Crunch saying, hey, we're opening soon. Come check out our $5 million gym. So I'm guessing they're under the Select or Signature model, but $500 million, I'm really curious to share how much money these guys are making in terms of sales. $5 million is a lot of money to be able to produce sales that offset that, to be able to get a return on your investment. Now, you might be asking, what are the differences in terms of their different models? Well, the Crunch Signature, which is the most expensive, so we're starting most expensive down to least expensive now, is a full-service premium location with luxury amenities like saunas, steam rooms, and towel service. Pretty sure that's what's being opened across the street. While Crunch Select is an upgraded version of a standard Crunch Fitness with more classes and perks, but fewer premium features than the Signature locations. And the standard Crunch Fitness offers just essential equipment and classes at a budget-friendly price, with Select offering a middle ground and Signature providing the most amenities at an elevated experience. Now, in terms of fees, the franchise fee is surprisingly only $35,000. It's actually not surprising because a lot of these fitness concepts, part of the ways that they actually make their money is you're required to purchase your equipment through them or through an approved vendor. And then typically the franchisor gets kickbacks on the equipment. So they're making a certain profit margin on the equipment that franchisees have to buy. It's just part of the nature of that business model overall. The royalties are 5% of monthly gross sales. The marketing fee is 2% of monthly gross sales, which are all pretty standard in terms of royalties and marketing fees. All right, so now to the good part and the exciting part, which is numbers, sales, earnings. How much money are these locations making? Now, in their FDD, they only provide sales information for the Crunch Fitness model, which is the lowest tiered startup cost model between $928,000 in startup costs to $3.7 million in startup costs. But for the franchise location specifically, the bottom 1/3 of locations do on average $1.48 million in sales. The middle third do $2.5 million in sales. And the upper third do $4.3 million in sales. So depending upon how much money it costs to get your specific location open, even if you're in the upper third and it costs you $3.7 million to get open, that may not be a very good investment. Whereas if it costs you $1 million, $1.5 million, and you're doing, $3-4 million in sales, well then those are strong sales to investment ratios. So a lot of the times what determines if these franchises or locations are a good investment is the sales to investment ratio, is how much are your specific startup costs, and then what sort of sales does your specific location wind up producing. But check this out. They also show some interesting other financial information that a lot of franchises don't show. So I wanted to make sure that we shared it with you in this video. Check this out. So in this breakdown, they basically show like a profit and loss statement or a mock profit and loss statement. And what they do is they show it based on the median performing club based on how long they've been open. So you can see at the top, it goes 12 to 24 months, 25 to 36 months, 37 to 48 months, and then clubs open, between 4 to 5 years, essentially. You can see the average monthly sales and average monthly revenue is pretty high in the beginning, 12 to 24 months at $314,000, and it is showing at the highest at between 37 to 48 months at $370,000 in average monthly revenue. And you can see that those are the top performing locations, ones that have been open just over 3 years, between 3 and 4 years. So I'm curious why that's the case, why there's such a large drop off between clubs that have been open between 4 and 5 years. I feel like there's a story behind that the numbers are not sharing and showing. And then when we look, they show the total operating expenses. So we can see what those numbers look like, and we can see their average COP, which they label as cash operating profit. I'm going to explain in a second what that means. They defined it in their FDD. I think you'll find the definition interesting because, again, it doesn't tell the full story. So what's interesting is that they show so if you're not familiar with the term EBITDA, it's a commonly exchanged term for profit. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. And here, they list an R after it. I'd never seen that before. And that stands for rent, which is interesting. So they're saying their average cash operating profit before rent, I don't even know why they would show that number. Why would that even make sense? If all of your locations are paying rent, why would you strip it out and show your cash operating profit before paying rent? I think that's completely illogical and stupid, quite frankly. But you can basically see how much these locations are paying in rent. And on average, you see the numbers reduce when you look at the actual EBITDA below that. They reduced by about $500,000 to $600,000, which means these locations are paying about $40,000 to $50,000 a month in rent. That's pretty wild, huh? But you can see they show cash operating profit along the bottom, somewhere ranging between $837,000 all the way to $1 million. But it doesn't tell the full story. As you see, there is an asterisk by where it says cash operating profit. So when we look at the paragraph in their franchise disclosure document of what cash operating profit means, take a look for yourself. Cash operating profit represents the income or loss generated after subtracting cost of goods sold and operating expenses from net revenue. This figures relate to the actual performance of the club once open and does not include interest expense on equipment or improvements that may be financed, sales tax expense on profits generated from the business, or any non-cash expenses such as depreciation, amortization expenses related to the value of equipment or improvement to the property. Similarly, the cost of the initial franchise fee, architectural renderings, or other initial investment expenses are included from the statement We anticipate that each franchise will fund its investment differently and therefore have made no assumptions on how the investment would be funded or accounted for. So EBITDA normally doesn't include interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, meaning it's before your loan payment, right? Or any interest that you pay on the loan. So someone with a build out for $3 million, they could have a loan payment of $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 a month in terms of their loan payment on their business. So that's not reflected in the cash operating profit. But what's also not reflected in there is if they specifically financed the equipment separately. So at the end of the day, what's interesting about a business with a lot of equipment is your financing options are different because you can get an equipment financing loan as opposed to like a regular loan or SBA loan because the equipment has value to it, which I thought you might find interesting. So either way, kudos to Crunch for showing the level of transparency of numbers that they show, because many franchises do not show this level of transparency and basically like a mock profit and loss statement with cash operating profit. But if we take a look at some of the other numbers that they provide, they show the average amount of members based on the clubs and how long the clubs have been open. So what you can see is on the left-hand side, the length the clubs have been open, and you can see the average amount of members. And so the peak is between 2 and 3 years at 8,300 members, which is pretty interesting. And then you can see that number drop every year after that, which is not encouraging. And as you know, there's often churn, what you call churn, where you lose customers in any sort of business model that is recurring revenue, especially fitness, right? And where people just start giving up on their goals, they stop going to the gym, they're like, you know what, I haven't been going, I'm just going to cancel my membership. Or maybe other competitors open up and people jump to, other gyms. Either way, I think the numbers tell an interesting story. But if you're thinking, hey, Tarek, $3 million to open a Crunch Fitness is out of my price range and it's just out of my comfort zone in terms of the amount of risk that I want to take on, I'm looking for other types of franchise opportunities. Well, then I have a gift for you. Our team put together a whole breakdown of 42 high-performing franchises. In that breakdown, we share with you startup cost, sales, all of the important numbers that you would want to know about those specific franchise opportunities. So you can click the link below to go ahead and grab that completely for free. You better go grab it before we give it away because it has a lot of data and inside information in there. So what about the brand? How did Crunch get started? Kind of what's their history? Well, in 1989, Crunch Fitness started in Greenwich Village, New York, and was founded by a former stockbroker named Doug Levine. His idea was a gym with no judgments where everyone felt welcome. Again, sounds eerily familiar to Planet Fitness, but again, Crunch Fitness opened before Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness just had a really controversial marketing, right? With their whole lunk alarm and their purple colors. And I mean, very smart, very clever. But they stood out, Crunch stood out early by offering wild one-of-a-kind classes, bicycle yoga, which is weird, drag queen-led workouts, which is even weirder, and co-ed wrestling, which tops the cake. Very interesting. It wasn't just fitness, it was entertainment. But in 2001, check this out, Bally Total Fitness bought Crunch for a whopping $90 million. And then just 4 years later, Bally sold it at half the price because they were struggling financially. And then 2009, when the Great Recession happened, Crunch wound up filing for bankruptcy. And most people, quite honestly, thought the brand was finished and that they were done. But instead, 2010 marked a turning point. They then launched their franchise model, and it exploded, quickly becoming the fastest growing full-size fitness franchise in the world. Then in 2019, the private equity firm TPG Growth acquired Crunch, accelerating its franchise business that even the pandemic couldn't slow down, and helping to invest in things like Crunch Live, their digital platform, and kept memberships climbing. Then in 2025, Leonard Green and Partners, another private equity firm, bought a major stake in Crunch Fitness for $1.5 billion. Now, all this talk about Crunch and then Planet Fitness, now you might be thinking, how much do the Planet Fitness franchises make? I'm really curious about that. Well, I think you'll be surprised, and in this video, I made a whole breakdown about Planet Fitness franchises and a $675 million transaction that I think is going to surprise you and you're going to find very interesting, and you can go check it out on that video. We will see you on the next one.